And the day that she passed, my mind went silent, like that constant chatter we have going on in our head that's always narrating everything we do and say and whatever everybody else is doing and saying. um, it just stopped. And in its place, I got a strong sensation, the best way I can describe it is love is the point. Hi, welcome to Beauty from Ashes. I'm Kim. Just want to share a little bit about the podcast and what inspired it. What's our big why? So a couple of us, more than really, have come together and want to share the healing that we've experienced as far as letting go of the past and reframing the experiences that we've had into something that helps us grow and experience life in a way that feels pleasurable, to see ourselves as creators of our lives. And we recognize the value of sharing stories of overcoming that allow people to see that it's possible to shift your perspective. More and more of us are seeing ourselves as creators of our lives rather than victims of it. And it can be very helpful when you're in the midst of a situation to see that other people have overcome hardships as well and become better for it. So I invite you to, if it resonates, to share these videos with others who may benefit from recognizing the power of shifting your mindset and walking beyond the fear of a situation. If any of this appeals to you, please share and subscribe. And I hope you enjoy the episode and gain some positive meaning from it. Thanks for watching.
All right, welcome all to another episode of Beauty from Ashes, and my name is David Lloyd, and I am one of the founders of the Intersection Foundation, and so is Celeste here. And today we're going to talk about Celeste's story and a little bit about who she is and how she came to be. So that's where our day is going today. So, what do you think, Celeste? Let's do this. Let's start with the kind of how we've had before. Just start with a little bit about just a brief background, and then we'll dive into kind of more of your story.
Well, I'm noticing right off the bat that as Celeste, it feels foreign to tell this story. So I'll
Yeah,
start there.
maybe today the story is from Kim,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
Celeste. That's okay too.
Um,
Celeste
so
is the new Kim.
yes, Celeste is the new Kim. Um, Basically, well, in 2015, now I'm gonna back up a little bit from there. Um, Prior to 2015, I was very much of a dogmatic Christian. Lived a life of being a sinner and getting saved and helping other people to understand those concepts and push in that direction forcefully. Um, and then in 2015, my daughter Grace, who was 11, was diagnosed with brain cancer. And the particular kind of cancer that she was diagnosed with, we were told right out of the gate, she had a less than 1% chance of survival. And there wasn't much they could do. So uh, we opted for natural remedies because we saw some hope there, and it was already a direction I had put myself in personally. And we did start out with, we started out at a children's hospital where they gave us that news, and then went to another children's hospital I'll leave the name out. Didn't have a great experience there. And but did also discover, like, okay, the natural stuff seems to be helping. So then we got home and we started doing lots and lots and lots of stuff for natural remedies, and pretty quickly realized that things were going downhill. So this all started, like, she was diagnosed April 28th of 2015. By Father's Day, which is, mid-June, she was losing her ability to talk. And walk was also losing her ability to walk was also happening. And she's having massive seizures and lots of other stuff that was extremely challenging to deal with. And doing my best not to focus too much on the pain of the story, but also realizing it's necessary for people to understand where I am with the whole thing, because it was definitely not a cakewalk. I remember in the midst of lots of lack of sleep, lack of eating, lack of bathing, feeling like I was literally losing my mind. And every day was a new adventure, and what's going to happen now. That I stated very boldly to God, like, if you let her die, I will never speak to you again. That'll be the end of it. And I ended up, one particular day, a family member came over and said they would sit with her, and so I could go get some sleep. And I fell asleep wondering, asking for some kind of clarity, help me understand how to get through this. And I woke up from the dream, and the only thing that came to me in the dream was the words, my grace is sufficient. And I don't know if I mentioned that her name was Grace. So I was like, okay, what does that mean? So
there's a lot to that too, just with her name being Grace. I know there's more of the story from her birth, I believe, why she
yeah,
was called Grace. So there's that, right?
yeah, there's a whole lot of story there. So it gave me a sense of peace. But not profound peace, but just like, okay, like I've got some kind of answer. I'm not sure what it means, but it's something to hang on to. So fast forward about another 6 weeks, and during that time, she lost, like, within that second half, she lost her ability to eat normally. She couldn't swallow right anymore. And she was having these massive, I mentioned that already, that she was having these massive seizures that I found out from a family member was when they focal emotional seizures. I think that was the name of it. And to this day, the best description I can give what we experienced, what she experienced, is fits of rage. And at that time, I very much described it as demonic. Like, this is not my child. I don't know who this is. And there was no reasoning, zero. So it was challenge after challenge after challenge. Well, then eventually, so 12 weeks almost to the day, she passed. And the day that she passed, my mind went silent. Like that constant chatter we have going on in our head that's always narrating everything we do and say and whatever everybody else is doing and saying. um, it just stopped. And in its place, I got a strong sensation, the best way I can describe it is love is the point. And a profound sense of peace. And if I had to put a time limit on how long that took place, that sensation, I guess, I would say minutes, maybe less. It was short, at least it felt that way. And then what took its place was a whole lot of grief. And obviously, you lose a child, you're going to grieve. You lose anybody, you're going to grieve. But I didn't just lose a child, I lost an identity in many, many ways.
Yeah.
The person that I had known myself to be was a Christian homeschooling mom, pretty conservative, pretty sure how my life was going to play out, pretty confident of who God was and who God wasn't. And pretty quickly, that one thought after another started to be raised into question. And it at that point, I decided, like, nothing makes sense anymore. Like it is a feeling of being untethered. Like, the best way I've been able to explain to people, like, you've been thrown into the middle of the ocean and there's no lifeline. You're just out there. You don't know what to hold on to. Or same with, like, floating in space, like, but not in a, oh, this is so freeing kind of way, more like, oh my God, what do I do? And I remember even looking in the mirror in the days of grieving early on and literally not recognizing my own face. Wondering who am I? Who is this person? I don't know who this is. So I spent probably about 2 years, really longer than that, but for the first 2 years, a whole lot of questioning and reading and journaling and deconstructing things that I had been taught for my whole life. And finally, after that amount of time, I came to a point where I wouldn't consider myself a Christian anymore. I wasn't ready to tell the world that, because I very much was afraid to stand in that space. But I did end up leaving a marriage and all of that group of family and friends behind, because I knew I couldn't be a part of that anymore. And didn't really understand much of anything about God other than I know this whole hell thing isn't legit. Nobody's going there. That's not a thing. So I sat in that space for a couple of years trying to figure out, what do I believe? What do I not believe? I don't know. And meanwhile, trying to put my life back together, I kind of scrapped everything, um, trying to figure out, job, housing, all those other things. Bounced around a lot from job to house for about 2 years. And eventually landed in a space where I was like, okay, I'm ready to start like really building again, because there was such a long time of like just tearing down, tearing down, tearing down. And there wasn't much space for expansion. It's really just a whole lot of ripping and shredding.
Yeah.
um so then about that time, so about 6 months into living with some roommates, was dealing with some health problems, still very much pursuing natural remedies. Um, and I became concerned enough to go to the doctor, which was way, way outside of my norm at that point. And um, found out I had cancer. And that then launched me into, okay, well, I don't know exactly what I believe about all my beliefs, but I know I got to figure out something because I got to have an anchor right now. So I started diving into books like The Power of Now, um, and The Four Agreements and some others. And I realized, okay, wow, there's a whole different way of looking at things, and I'm still really not getting it, but um I this is it, what's the word I want? Intriguing, to say the least. So I was really diving down that rabbit hole, I mean, and dealing with all my cancer stuff, and um realizing, and that's a whole nother story in itself, but I'll touch very briefly on that part. In hindsight, realized that I very much was guided through that situation by my higher self. Um, because answers came to me that I had no way of knowing that that would be beneficial. It just felt right. Um, so then after that year was over, things are settling down. I'm kind of in the mindset of life is short. Like I had already come to that conclusion after the loss of my daughter, but now like take it by the horns, Kim. It's time to quit playing around and enjoy yourself. Go do things that matter to you. So my boys and I decided to take a trip to Glacier National Park, and we had some fun with that. And life was going well again. Um, and then a couple months after that, my oldest told me um, that he felt very abused as a child and didn't feel comfortable being around me, and that he basically gave me an ultimatum, and I'm not going to go into all of that, but um I was devastated. Like, again, one of those like, who am I kind of moments. Like I thought I was the good parent, and so I dove into a book I had bought during the cancer journey that I had started on, but it very much wasn't ready for. And it was a book called Loving What Is by Byron Katie. And it very much challenges your ego, though she doesn't put it in those terms, to stop making judgments and not only of others, but of yourself. But it starts out really with diving into the idea that we're both sides of the equation. Like, she doesn't talk about unity consciousness so much as what you see in others, you also have in yourself. And I started doing that exercise. Her, um, her method that she uses to help people is called the work method, and she's got a worksheet that's called Judge Your Neighbor. And I had dove into that after my son basically told me he didn't want me in his life. And I was just shredding him. Like, all right, I can judge him all day long. Like, he shouldn't have, and blah, 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 you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it it woke in me an understanding of how to look at parts of myself that I had very much been denying, parts of myself that I was ashamed of, and to take ownership for those things, not in a shameful way, but in a we're all human kind of way.
Yeah.
Yes, I see this in him, but I have it in me also. And it was a great sense of relief and growth that took place. And I continued to use that as a go-to method for a long while. And really began to recognize like the whole, adage of, I'm pointing one finger at you and three back at myself. Yeah, okay. And it really started to shift some things for me. Um, and I started diving more and more into spiritual texts, and without going into all the details of what that whole thing looked like, I got to a point of recognizing that it was my daughter's passing that allowed me to recognize, one, that I was never separate from God, that none of us are, and two, that I was extraordinarily grateful for her contribution to that taking place, because I had lived so many years with the idea that there's something wrong with me, I'm bad, other people are bad, that there's something wrong with them, um, we're going to hell, we got it, like God loves us, but he doesn't really like us, and I'm not even sure what love means to God because there's all this judgment.
Mm-hmm.
um, and coming to a point of understanding, no, that's a story that I had bought into. And um my daughter's passing, and honestly the way I see it is that an agreement that was made before both of us got here in the physical world, um that this is how we would manage the situation, that she was aware that this is what she was agreeing to, and I was aware that this is what I was agreeing to. And it was the moment that I recognized, not only does this unconditional love live inside of me, I can tap into it at will, but also that she helped me to find it. And I was a bliss is the only word I can use to describe that.
Yeah.
And it was almost like and I just had this pop into my head for the first time. That moment the day of her passing, that moment where I had this like sense of, love is the point, um, sense of peace was like there was in my mind, in my experience, a large time gap between that occurrence and then the reality of me accepting that, yes, that's true. That's wholeheartedly true. But it took me years and emotion, lots of emotions, um, to get to that understanding of like, oh, I get it now. I get it. Um, and I also understand that each of us is creating our own experience. Um, and at the same time, I have a great desire to help people feel that sense of self-compassion, um, which requires a whole lot of forgiving yourself and forgiving other people. And at the same time, it's like this wow moment, like indescribable wow moment when you have enough of that where you're like, oh my God, okay, it's all right. I don't enjoy every aspect of what's happening, but it's all right. It's all right. Um, that's what inspired this whole podcast for me was helping people have those opportunities to see, should they, should their soul have a desire to do that, to see that you can shift something so profoundly difficult to something so beautiful. Um,
There's no the name Grace. Every time since I've known you, like this idea that you've been given grace is so profound.
yeah.
Both I know the story initially from how she came to be, and then the grace you were giving when she left. So profound.
And that's my desire to share because it is profound. And um, anything less than that, then I'm still, I very much am recognizing that unconditional love means unconditional. Like I've had that moment over and over and over, like, oh yeah, well, but what about, and nope, that too. Nope, that too. Like uh, even, you know, I shared a bit about my story with my son. Um, I didn't hear from him, well, once or twice, very brief encounters we had, but for the most part, I didn't hear from him for 4 years. And um, I recently, and I'll share that part too. After I participated in a sacred mushroom ceremony, which is how the name Celeste came about, um, and witnessed the true beauty of who we are. Like I saw beautiful beings, David being one of them. Um, it was a new level of understanding that love is the point, but in it like everything is sacred, everything. And so I decided maybe a month or two ago, anyway, recently, that I was gonna write Jeremiah, my oldest, a note. And I started to write this note out. And it was just straight from the heart. Like there was no pretenses, there was no like begging for forgiveness, no trying to cajole him to like me or love me or any of that. It was just like, here's where I'm at. Um, if you'd like to chat, I've had this profound experience. If you want to hear more about it, um, reach out. And he did. Um, and there's a whole story there too, and I won't get into that one, but it was at that point another level of self-compassion of it's okay for people not to like what you're doing. It's okay for people not to like you. It's okay. Um, it's not their job to like me, it's mine. And that level of self-compassion is huge as well because we go around so much of the time thinking we're not good enough. Like, fuck that.
Yeah, I agree.
um the comment that you made about her name and the thread that travels through that is, I mean, there's no accidents anyway. I've just realized that, but um is profound in itself. She came into my life after me almost giving up on having children because of miscarriages. And then she was sort of kind of an oops baby. um and my sister, whose name is Christine, was not speaking to me at that time, and it had a lot to do with me being the dogmatic Christian all up in her face. Um, and I decided that my daughter's middle name would be Christina, partly in naming after my sister, um, because of the whole extending grace. What good is grace if I'm not going to offer it to other people? And um, tying in now full circle with the idea of Christ consciousness and recognizing not so much seeing Christ like I did 10 years ago as this person that came to save me, but more as a role model, what it means to be fully God and fully human, and that we're all connected. um so Christ consciousness in that regard, and her having the name Grace Christina, and putting those two things together, and then me having to surrender her from my physical life to fully experience what that meant. Like
Yeah,
it's
there's a lot of depth in this. So much depth with both your daughter and your sister. And the names are no coincidence. Yeah,
mm,
yeah.
very grateful.
The beauty behind all that is, yeah. And you've mentioned before, you felt her in your life since she's passed many times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, gosh, let's see. The two stories. Oh, I could share a whole lot of stories. Um, which ones were the most pivotal? So in the beginning, after she passed, I um very much like we'll say in the first handful of weeks, I didn't believe in ghosts or, telepathy or any like spiritual woo-woo stuff, Matter of fact, like the whole Christian mindset was like, oh, that stuff's evil and, somebody's making that stuff up or it's bad or whatever. And as I mentioned, I journaled a lot. I don't know if I've shared this one with you or not before. So I was sitting at my computer journaling, and I had started already to get what felt like some signs, but I was very much questioning that. And I stopped mid sentence on my journal and just like on the journal asked the question, um, are you there? Is this real? Can you hear me? Um, help me. I just need to understand. And prior to that event, I had almost from the beginning started singing a song in my head. And there's a whole lot of depth to this too. It much ties in with self-compassion, but that's not how I saw it then. There was a Christian worship song that I had been attached to that popped into my head. And the chorus went something like this. Um, I love you more than the sun and the stars in the sky. You are mine. I will shine for you too. I love you yesterday and today and tomorrow. I'll say it again and again. I love you more. I love you more than the sun. And it repeats. I sing that song in my head to her more times than I breathed, I think. And for weeks, months even. And so coming back to the journal experience, I'm sitting there waiting for some kind of response to recognize I'm not crazy. She's still somehow in my life. And my son's alarm clock went off. And that song, which hadn't been played on the radio in years, was was the song that woke him up that morning, right after I asked that question. And it was at that point that I was like, this is legit. This is legit.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other one that happened in the early days that I almost got tattooed on my arm was okay, so there's a little bit of backstory necessary for this to make sense. I had been working a job, and it was the first job I had worked out of the home in many years. And so she was struggling to be apart from me. And so we started writing each other notes. And I bought this little toy mailbox thing, and we would put notes to each other in this mailbox. And she had left me a note. Uh, and I put that note in my coat pocket. It was wintertime. I put that note in my coat pocket, and wintertime was over. I put the coat in storage, forgot about it. And after she passed, I got that coat back out and I noticed there was something in the pocket and I reached in. And the other thing that was going through my brain almost nonstop was, I love you, I miss you. I love you, I miss you. I love you, I miss you. And I pulled this note out of my pocket as I'm preparing to go buy flowers for her gravestone. And it says in her writing, I love you, I miss you too. And I just busted out crying. Um, and it was, yeah, another one of those moments where it was like, I mean, is that a coincidence? I don't think that's a coincidence.
Maybe
Um,
not.
no, it really wasn't. But
No.
it was those kinds of things. And then as time has gone by, and I've become more and more open to understanding how we are all connected, um, I've had moments where she has touched me. I don't know how to put that in a way that makes sense.
Mhm.
um, it was during a sound bath um experience. I don't know what to call that session. I was laying on a table and there was sound bowls being played all around me, and I was touched by a hand, and it was not the person who was playing the bowls. And I very much knew at that point that it was her. Um, she's left me more feathers than I can possibly count, and you know, sometimes it felt like they were coincidences, but then it was like, yeah, but no. The times at which I needed them the most were when they would show up, and it would make so much sense. Like, okay, yeah, she's here. Like when I well, and the other thing she left me was glitter, and that was very much she was very much of a crafty girl. Um when I was in the hospital getting surgery for my colon cancer, and it was during the time of the pandemic, so nobody was allowed to be there with me. Um, so I'm going into surgery and I'm scared out of my fucking mind. And um, I look up at this doctor who's, he's a surgeon. He's all prepped for taking me into the surgery room, at his white lab coat and all that kind of stuff. And I look up at him and he's got a piece of glitter on his face. And it was right after I had said, like, okay, I'm feeling really alone right now. I could use some kind of help right now. um, Lots of instances like that.
Yeah.
Uh, where it was clear to me she's still in my life, and just the profoundness of how she's contributed uh to the level of peace that I have. And I was reflecting on that earlier before I decided, before we started recording, like, okay, so what's important to me to include. And one of the things that I remember saying early on, before I had fully walked away from the idea of Christianity in the traditional sense, um, was I remember that somebody made the comment on a Facebook post that uh, the Bible says, his peace passes understanding, referring to Jesus, and that it's a promise. And I remember responding to that post with, it's not a guarantee, because I was fully convinced at that time that never, ever in my life again would I feel peace. I didn't think it was possible.
Yeah.
And had had somebody told me back then that not only was it possible, but it would be as a result of her passing, I would have punched them. I'm not typically a violent person. Not physically violent. I've definitely beat myself up plenty of times and I've judged people, but I've never, well, I can't say never. It's rare that I've hit someone um in that kind of way. So yeah, like no, that wasn't even a possibility that would have crossed my mind. Is, not only is this, not only are you going to have peace because of what took place, not in spite of it. I remember the first time that I was able to verbalize that to somebody, and I felt like I was, they're gonna think I'm a sociopath. And now I'm like, I don't care. I don't care.
Right. Deep. You're making me cry over here. It's a lot of so much to that.
It's when you when I was able to stop looking at what should be happening and what shouldn't be happening and what people should be doing or shouldn't be doing, more and more, and I'm still having those moments, but
Yeah.
um it suddenly was like, how do I want to say that? Freedom, guiltlessness.
Mhm.
I can't get it wrong. Nobody else can get it wrong. There's stuff that they do we don't like, and that's okay.
Right.
There's stuff that I do that they don't like, and that's okay too.
Right.
Um, we're all just having an experience.
As they say, we're all just walking each other home, right?
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
walks are different for everybody. Different
yeah,
lengths of time, different paths.
yeah. And who'd have thunk that an 11-year-old,
Mm.
I just remembered something. Um, who'd have thunk that an 11-year-old would have as much impact on the world as she did in 11 years?
Mm-hmm.
Seems, like, but by most people's standards, that's completely unreasonable and unfair.
Right. Yeah. Wow. So to jump ahead a little bit, because this isn't just about sadness. It's
No,
about what
no.
we can do with it. This is about the transmutation of these experiences into something new and different. And you and I met because of that, frankly, in a roundabout way. Your Facebook page, The Logic of Spirituality, and I remember I first came across that page. I'm like, dude, this chick is talking exactly about what I'm talking about. Like, I don't know who you, I didn't know you then. I never, I'm like, this is awesome. Someone else is talking about the same thing I'm talking about. Right on. And then, so talk a little bit about how that's transmuted and where you are now with your life.
Hmm.
Because a lot's happened since then.
Yeah. Where do this isn't where do you want me to start at?
It's
Like
just
what?
about kind of where you are now. Like you've taken that. This is to me, I see it as something it's your drive. It's put the passion behind where you're going now. It's very much kind of it's your fire
Okay.
that lit you. It's what
Yeah. Yeah.
or one of the fires, I should say.
Um, So I mentioned that my um focus for many years was on alternative medicine. And I
Mhm.
had dove into that world quite a bit. Um, and despite that, like I was, by most people's standards, one of the healthiest eaters. I was very particular about what I would eat. And yet I ended up with cancer. And it was at that point that I realized, well, I began to realize rather, that I was addressing my health strictly from the perspective of nutrition and biology. Um, but that I wasn't addressing the emotional component. And
Mhm.
although I had, done some work by that point, um, I realized I needed to dive further into the emotional parts of it. So then, um, I started learning all these things about the emotional healing aspects of things. And there was a number of ways that that came about. Still very much focused on the science of it because uh, as a person who is very dedicated to research, I'm kind of a prove it to me girl. Um, Even the mushroom journey was, an experiment, like an experiment on
Mhm.
myself. Like I intellectually understand this, and this. Prove it to me. Like I need to feel it.
Right.
Um, and um, so I started. How did the logic page come about? Let me think about that for a minute. I was realizing that there was all of this science coming out regarding unity consciousness, um, meaning, we're all connected, and that there was a whole lot more to what we've been taught than what we've been taught.
Mhm.
um, and that there's a whole lot of people who are talking about those things from biology to physics to philosophy, psychology, like you name it. Excuse me, all these different scientific disciplines that are now exploring these things in a very deep way. And I enjoy researching. So I was like, I mean, put your hands together, right? Like, I'm going to read all this stuff anyway. I might as well have a page for other people who like that kind of thing.
Right.
And if they get something out of it, great. If they don't, then I'm having fun checking these videos out and sharing them with people and hoping that they, gather some little tidbit that leans them more in the direction of self-compassion. And I talk a lot about self-compassion as opposed to compassion for others because for two reasons. One, if it weren't for that in my own life, I wouldn't be here, literally. Many
Sure.
times I consider ending my life. Um, but also when you have compassion for self, you are having compassion for others because what you create within yourself then spills out, basically. Um, and since we're all connected, you're putting that into the soup bowl, if you will.
Right.
um, so yeah, the logic page was really just encouraging more of that and having a good time doing it. Um, and yeah, then to kind of dive into how we landed on this podcast, how we created it together. You made the comment about, seeing my page and being like, oh, we've got some things in common on my end.
Mhm.
And this is, ties in with those stories we tell ourselves. Um, Having had some experiences that related to like spam bots on Facebook, I was like, who is this guy? What is this about? Like, I don't even
Yeah.
know the person's name. So I went digging and found the same thing that you had found on my end. Like, oh my God, there's some cool stuff happening here. I need to talk to this guy. So, um, yeah, it was, as a result of that and just both of us having a passion for compassion, I want
Yeah.
wanting for people to be aware that not only is what we're saying true, but it's provable.
Yeah.
And you get to believe whatever you want.
Right.
But if what you're believing, like what I had been believing in the beginning, and like prior to my daughter's passing and for a while after, is hurting you, then it's time to reevaluate.
Right.
And only you can do that. But it's by listening to episodes like this or the stuff that you and I share on Facebook, the intersection page or my page, um, that allows people to go, okay, well, maybe it's okay to question. Maybe it's okay to give myself a break. Maybe it's okay to give somebody else a break. Um, Maybe it's okay to not take this so seriously.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe
See the
it's okay
purpose
to,
behind it all.
yeah, maybe it's okay to let some shit go.
Yeah.
Maybe it's okay to feel what I have to feel and not judging.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love it.
me
Here we
too.
are, right? Here we are.
Right. Right.
Right. I mean, the things that we go through is what makes us. Sometimes my mom and I had this conversation, and I told her before, like, the only way angels are made is by going through hell. Go through hell, you must learn compassion because all of a sudden you know what it's like to be in hell. You know what it's like. I mean, you can have empathy for others because how can you not? And sometimes the ones that go through the most have the most empathy because they must. It's
Yeah,
it's
and
it's
where I've
it's
gotten to
amazing.
at this point, as far as that goes, is understanding empathy is remaining present with the person. And I had some people in my life, especially in the early days, that did a really pretty good job of just being with me. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to explain it away.
Yeah.
Just be there and listen, give a hug, whatever, but don't try to make it wrong.
Right.
And then offering to people if they are, well, I mean, offer is all you can do. Invite people into the idea that you have choices all
Right.
of the time, all of the time. It's the most abundance that we have is choices. And you can choose to stay in a mindset that very much feels like crap and no judgment. Like you get to pick, but understand that you're picking
Mm-hmm.
and potentially learn if you feel so led, so inspired, how to feel the emotion without becoming the emotion so that you can stand and go, okay, this is what's happening. Um, and it's okay. And it doesn't mean it's always going to be happening.
Right.
Um, I was thinking, I shared a reel on Facebook earlier today, thinking about the idea of something you just said, and I don't remember now what you said. It reminded me.
Um, oh, how angels are made. Uh,
Mm.
when when we look at, say, for example, any kind of expression of art, whether that's music or poetry or a painting or whatever that is, we make interpretations of it, right? We look at it, and one person might say, "Oh my gosh, that's the most beautiful thing," and I see a horse. And somebody
Yeah.
else might look at it and go, "That's the god awfulest, ugliest thing," and I see a piece of shit, like,
Yeah,
uh,
whatever it is.
right. Um, so, uh, recognizing that we have created our own version of ourselves by all of the things that we've captured and made meaningful for our own experience.
Right.
And then being able to, just like a artist would potentially have the honor of doing, stand back and look at that creation and go, wow,
Right.
I'm going to enjoy that. I'm going to enjoy it as much as I possibly can, because look at this beautiful thing I made, like you would with one of your children.
I was thinking, I was just saying that the idea of that's the name of the podcast, right? Define the beauty in the ash. And if you look into the ashes and see the beauty, then you can become the phoenix. It's there's lessons in everything. Trauma is only trauma when it's trauma. When the lesson is found and the beauty is found, it's no longer traumatic because now it's not ashes, it's fertilizer. It's planted a garden for you to see something different in your life. And it's tricky sometimes, especially things like these. Some things they're lifelong burning. It's a lot of ash. There's a lot of things. Takes a long time to look back and say, oh, I see why that. To understand the whys and the hows and the whens and really get it because
Yeah.
it's deep. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot. And it is deep. There's layers of stuff you got to
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
Um, in the hindsight of my grief many years post, I,
Mm-hmm.
for the first time, heard of something called complicated grief.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't understand what it meant, so I started reading. It was in a book by David Kessler and Louise Hay. You Can Heal Your Grief, or something like that. And when I read it, I was like, yeah, okay.
Right.
So, there's grief, like you've lost somebody or something that was really important to you. And then complicated is where you got this whole extra layer of stuff that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was all of the religious stuff,
Right.
um,
Right.
and a whole lot of guilt and shame. Um,
Right.
and being able to learn the lesson from the experience without that. Like, don't make
Yeah.
yourself wrong. Oh, I did this terrible thing, so I deserve to learn a lesson. It's
Right.
not,
No.
I mean, we make it that way sometimes, but it's not that.
Right.
It's um
It's you have some great worth, so you're taught a lesson because at one point that lesson is going to be needed in your life. Like the things we go through, they make us. And if we didn't go through them, we couldn't be us. We wouldn't be doing the things we're doing without those things. We couldn't step into the shoes that we're meant to step into without walking through the things that taught us the lessons we needed to learn to become that person.
yes, 100%.
This has been awesome. We're reaching our hour here. I think this has been a great conversation.
Thanks, Stephen.
Oh, thank you. This was really great. Yeah, I realized as we're talking, I've known many people of my life, and I don't know why this is in my life. A lot of close friends who've lost children. My first kind of published piece of anything is on the back of a headstone of a small baby from a friend I worked with. And then I've had three other friends who lost their children. And I thought, I don't know, it's just really, it's too much. Why is that all there? Sometimes and you look back that it had been that conversation. until recently in my life when I can start to see, sometimes I remember I was at a forest retreat a while back, and this lady was really going through it, and I could feel her pain. And it was so different because I could almost see the beauty in her pain. I was almost jealous because I
Raw.
understood it was just this, yeah, raw pain. But I knew where she was at the edge. She was coming through it. She was just about to the end of this pain, and she was stepping into a whole new experience of that pain. So she was painting different colors. And all of a sudden, it was so clear, kind of, that it's only pain until it's processed.
Mm.
And then it's not pain. And then it's ashes are different. It's not fire anymore. It is ashes. And ashes are beautiful, healthy things that help things grow. It's without the ashes, sometimes things don't grow. Like
I
the
was
redwoods, right?
listening to a video reel by Peter Crone. I think that was yesterday, whatever day that was, that I shared with you guys. And he said one of his favorite shifts is to see someone move from grief to gratitude. And
Yeah.
it's profound when it happens.
Yeah.
The level of energy that's released in that moment, like
Right.
like giving, like what you're using the analogy of the ashes, like all of a sudden these ashes not only aren't ashes anymore, but they're embers. They're bringing life again.
Right. Exactly. Very much. Changes the whole thing. The whole story changes. All of a sudden you're writing a new story.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely a new story.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. What a great conversation.
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you for that. It's vulnerable, but it's a beautiful conversation and it's needed. It's these kind of conversations that I'm glad we're having here. Point of this whole particular podcast that we're doing, and I love it, and I'm grateful for you sharing. Thank
Thank you.
you. Yeah. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and stop this one, and until next time. Awesome.